Topic today again is electrification. Of course, this is such a enormous topic that we're only going to scratch the surface, but I have had the great pleasure of speaking several times already with our two speakers today. So Conrad Asper is from PG&E. He is an energy efficiency program manager at PG&E, and he's going to start us off today. And then Jerry Schaefer is a seasoned electrician. He's got many work endeavors underway. He works for Lead Generators in Santa Rosa, Greenleaf Energy. He's also just a consultant for all things solar and sustainability under his general contractor license, B and C46 licenses. So really great knowledge in the house today, and I'm really excited to have these guys present. So we're going to start off with Conrad, and then we're going to have Jerry present. And then if you could hold all your questions to the end or just type them into the chat, we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. And I'll either read them or you can raise your hand and we'll go through all the questions. So with that, please, Conrad, take it away. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Ashley. It has been great prepping with you. So as Ashley said, I'm a PG&E employee. I work as a program manager for primarily residential new construction, but I also am running an incentive program that also hits on alterations, so and ADUs as well. So we'll get into that a little later. Mark, if you can go ahead and start the slides, that would be great. I would like to start off by level setting. The topic I'm focusing on really is building electrification. I know we are interested in EVs and other electrification throughout the state, but my bread and butter really at PG&E is the all-electric new construction and electrification of buildings. So we'll start with that. Next slide. The state of California has some pretty audacious policy goals. They are really trying to focus on building electrification as a primary tool for meeting some of our climate challenges here in the state and the world. So building electrification is definitely top of mind for a lot of our California policymakers in the building industry particularly. Building electrification reduces greenhouse gas emissions by focusing on very efficient electric heat pump space heating and heat pump water heating. Those are more efficient than the traditional combustion products. And as we electrify our buildings, we're also in tandem significantly increasing renewable energy production that's getting put onto the grid. And so really, when you're talking about electrification of buildings, you're getting to where there's a really very GHG-free building. So that's the goal at a high level for California. And then next slide. The CEC, California Energy Commission, had a heat pump forum a few months back. I think it was April. And they put forth explaining that the code that they use, the energy code for new construction, has been utilizing the energy design rating, EDR, as a mechanism moving forward to enforce and work towards electrification of new construction. So it's anticipated in 2025 that there is going to be further changes to the code, which probably will make it somewhat pretty difficult to build mixed fuel homes. I think the pathway will be there. However, it will be somewhat cost prohibitive to do that. So really production builders will really be focusing on ways to make all electric products. In addition to heat pump technologies being the baselines, also gas line extension allowances have been curtailed for the state. And so it increases the cost of putting in gas lines, new gas lines. So that's what's going on with the state. For PG&E, we're responding to this as well. And we do believe that all electric new construction is good for our customers in California and the climate, of course. And we do welcome the opportunity to avoid installing new gas infrastructure that's potentially going to be underutilized in the future. So we are right along working with the state and in our response and trying to do everything we can for our customers to be prepared as we move towards building electrification. The residential retrofit market as well we agree that that is also an important tool for meeting California's climate goals and ensuring that greenhouse gas reductions and a positive customer experience is something that we're very keen on at PG&E. So those are things that we're looking towards as well. So this is really our response. And then as we have been responding to the changes, we do go ahead and have some tools that we've been working with to help our customers understand and move towards building electrification. So this is a picture of our homepage, or our electrification page off of the PG&E website. And it shows various support for our customers, some of which the support activities I'll talk about later on in the presentation. But at any, I think these slides will probably be available, or there will be some form of being able to click on these links. And at the end of this presentation, you'll see a resource page, and that resource page has all these links on it as well. So it should be user-friendly. And of course, if you have any questions, I'm always open to supporting all of our builders in being able to understand the resources available from PG&E. So in addition to this homepage, or to this page, off of this page, we have a handy guide to home electrification. And that guide, when you double click into it, talks more about what home electrification is. You can learn more about home electrification, how to evaluate what upgrades you can make. And then also it goes into reviewing the electrification process and working with PG&E early in the process to help electrify your home and take you on your home electrification journey. So we have, again, clear links to all this information that I'm sharing today, and we can move on. So in addition to our electrification guide and explanation of how to work with PG&E on electrifying your home, we have various resources available that help builders and customers understand what needs to be done for electrification. And we work with our various teams, work with the CEC, the California Energy Commission, on the energy code. And one of our tools that we have available for free is our energy code ACE. And that allows builders to access good information and trainings and resources that help them to understand what codes are that they need to follow for being able to complete projects and electrification projects in general. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that we do have some fact sheets that I've provided some links for. And we don't have time really to double click into these, but I do want to let you know that these are available. And the fact sheets, once you click into them, have key terms, compliance requirements, and so forth. And particularly the last one, I understand that folks in Marin in this community may also be interested in accessory dwelling units, and that those are kind of a hot topic that are evolving in the community. And so we do have a fact sheet on accessory dwelling units, alteration ADUs, as well as looking at them as additions or actual new construction. And there's, nuances for the code in each of those. So I encourage you to go ahead and look at these fact sheets. And again, if you have questions, reach out to us. We definitely want to support our customers and our building community. Workforce education and training is another area. So we have the codes and standards, which I was just talking about. And then we have the workforce education and training group. We have a lot of free classes, online classes. We've had in-person classes, but due to COVID protocols, we kind of curtailed those, but we're coming back with some of those now. But these particular classes that I'm displaying here are some classes that are on demand. And you can go in and look retrofitting homes for electrification and decarbonization, and then electrifying without upsizing the electric panel, which I think that might be something that we'll talk a little bit more about later in the presentation or the webinar. But that's something to keep in mind, that we may not need to be upgrading the electric panel if you already have enough amperage coming into the home. So there's strategies that we can go over. I would say, actually, just one more point on this. I did want to highlight that there is going to be September 7th, a live webinar, and that I believe is going to be Dan Poronko, who is a home performance contractor. I think he's giving the webinar on September 7th, and that will be discussing some of what we're talking, only a deeper dive of what we're talking about today, which is the California's decarbonization goals, local ordinances, and then explaining electrifying existing single-family homes and how to manage whole house strategies for successful electrification retrofits. So I would encourage folks to take note of that, and hopefully go ahead and get onto that. If you're unable to attend, there's also through the catalog that we've been talking about here, the classes will be recorded and they will be on demand. So again, encouraging all to use those resources for workforce education and training that PG&E and other IOUs throughout the state are offering. Next slide. Now we get to actually the incentive programs, and that's what I do primarily. We have an all-electric new homes program, which provides incentives for all-electric new construction, single-family ADUs and multifamily for contractors or production builders who are building without gas, so no gas hookups. And then in addition, we have incentives for whole building electrification alterations, and that might be something that this group might be also interested in. Incentives are available for single-family and multifamily low-rise projects that remove gas from the building and then install advanced electrical equipment. Next slide. This shows some of the measures that we're talking about. The measures being, end uses, heat pump space heating, heat pump water heating. We are promoting induction cooking. We think that there's some pretty superior technology and control of your cooking through induction cooking. And if you haven't tried that, we also have actual induction cooktop loaner program that folks can check out induction cooktops. I think those are available in the Marin area as well. So those are some of the measures we're looking at. Next slide. And again, we do have some incentives for accessory dwelling units. They're lower than a full home alteration, but we do have some incentives available for that. And that website there, caenergysmarthomes.com, is where you'll go to further look at those incentives. And again, my contact information, Ashley and others will have that. And if you want to reach out to me, I can give you some more information on that. There's also other incentive programs outside of PG&E, and this is actually a great website to look at for potentially layering incentives. There are some programs where you can't have dual incentives for the same project, because that would be double dipping on the same from the same source. But there are a lot of sources in California that are providing incentives now for electrification. And so this website helps to navigate where you can actually layer and get maybe extra incentives for a project that you're working with. So definitely good to know about that as well. My goal here really today was to just provide you with some high-level background on where we're going with this, and then some resources available. In addition to the PG&E resources that I've shown, you have all the links there. That the switch is on, that incentive link is there as well. And I would also promote, I actually worked with Efficiency First California a couple years back, actually about 12 years back, I guess. I was the executive director, and I know that's a really good trade organization that works with home performance contractors, and they're obviously, with that build tight, ventilate right mantra, they're moving towards supporting electrification as well, because all efficient building helps with reducing the need to put load on for electrification, HVAC systems, et cetera. And then finally, Redwood Energy is a group. A gentleman by the name of Sean Armstrong runs that, and they have really good publications. So I provided you that link as well. So please do check that out. They talk a lot about, as we were saying before, trying to not need to upgrade or upsize your panel. So strategies in how to electrify without needing a panel upgrade. So that's pretty much my spiel, if you will. I'm open to questions, but before that, I think we're going to have another speaker check in. So back to you, Ashley.
Thank you so much, Conrad.
Sure.
If you are willing and open, you can type your email address in the chat for whoever's here, and then we'll also put whatever your preferred contact information is, I think, with the YouTube link when it gets published. So awesome. Well, thank you so much again. It's quite obvious that there are a gazillion resources out there to kind of get this electrification thing right. I highly recommend. I did actually click on all of the links that you sent a couple weeks ago, so highly encourage everybody to check those out. And with that, now we're going to get a much more boots on the ground perspective from Jerry, and take it away, Jerry. Thank you.
Well, first, thank you for Conrad at PG&E. That was it was good. I'm actually a little bit more of an advocate of PG&E than some people might think. Big part of what the direction we're going, which is a big issue, which nobody has really been able to address in great detail, is our infrastructure. Yeah, PG&E has limitations on what they can produce, what they can supply, and where they can get it. And this is an ongoing thing that's going to just get worse as we are, start to really dive into the, the full electrification and getting rid of gas. So that's going to be, by itself, is going to be an issue. Something else that's happening that I think anybody that has bought anything at a hardware store has found is the pricing of materials has gone through the ceiling. So sure, I want to electrify my house. I want to go all electric. The cost 2 years ago to do a heat pump was now, was X, and now it's X plus 2, because it's the material cost has gone up so much. And we literally do not have enough copper wire that is ready to be used to do what it is we need to do. So starting sooner is going to be better, and working in the right direction is going to be better. And a big part of what we can do is working in part with PG&E, but having more localized generation. Microgrids are they're a new hot topic that's coming up, and the microgrids can really soften the demand on the utility while giving the residents or the businesses the power they need when they need it. It incorporates the utility coming in. It incorporates the solar power if at all possible. It incorporates battery storage, and it basically softens the spikes in the load on the utility companies, which make them a lot more reliable. The last thing we want is a big spike to come up like we had, a couple of weeks ago, and PG&E says don't plug your electric cars in because it's going to push us over the top. Microgrids can really help to eliminate some of that issues. And yes, it's a big, expensive solution, but as they start to happen, they will become a lot less of a financial burden and more of a basically just increase the reliability factor of everything. How it's being used, it's able to, you've got transmission line losses, you've got all the other things going on with the utilities, and it doesn't matter who the utility is. They have a problem with losing a little bit here, a little bit there, and being able to have your microgrid is going to help to eliminate a lot of that, because you're going to be still using some of the utility, but you're producing it on site, you're consuming it on site, you're storing it on site, and it'll make neighborhoods a lot more resilient to the potential outages, the brownouts, and some of the other things that can happen. West Sonoma County has been inundated with power issues over the last couple of weeks because of demand and supply. So it is something that can really help, and it is nothing that's going to happen overnight, but it's something that we really need to go in the direction of. Cheap solutions that everybody thinks the big expensive solution has to be the only one that works. Cheap solutions are just putting timers on your devices, so you're not running things when they don't need to be run. You're charging your car. If you've got solar in your house, charging your car during the day is ideal. If you don't have solar in your house, charging a car at night is going to be less costly. So certain things, it does depend. Water heating, the same thing. If you've got solar, charge during the day. Air conditioning, you got solar, cool during the day. And solar, even with the incentives not being what they used to be, solar is still a very important part of what we need to do to get to soften the blow on the infrastructure and increase our reliability. Every solar system and installation that goes in reduces the dependence on the grid to supply everything. It just softens that blow. All these EV chargers that are going in town after town and parking lot and everywhere else, I think the jurisdictions have really missed a very big point in this, where the utility has to come in and supply big transformers and all this power to run these charging stations that mostly run during the day, where they could go in and without major expense put in canopy canopy solar panels for car charging and not be as big of a burden on the grid as some of these are becoming and are going to be in the future. Those are simple ways of reducing the spikes in the demand on the utility. You know, the utility is not ever going to go away. PG&E is going to be here for our generations and many generations after. And it's really important that, you know, we don't keep asking more and more and more from somebody that can only supply a certain amount because of their resources. So having our own is always going to be a better solution. It's going to be a safer solution. Having battery storage with solar is going to help to reduce, again, those spikes. You know, smart panels always are, you know, they're another big key thing that people are thinking about. But like I said earlier, timers and being able to turn on and off things, you know, without having the expense of having, you know, web-based equipment is just simple. Just don't have certain things run during the day if you don't need them. And that reduces the demand on the utility. Earlier, they talked, PG&E talked about service panels. I see customers all the time that, well, I need a 400 amp service panel. Well, 400 amps, that's 100 kilowatts of power at a given time. Most people don't need half of that, let alone, you know, 3/4 of that. So the discussion of, you know, service upgrades, you know, 150, 175, 200 amp with a, you know, solar ready panel is really going to be most of a lot of people are going to need. And, you know, yes, going with all electrification, there's going to be an increased demand, but a lot of places in the world don't even have 100 amp service. So if we can get by with 200, I think we're more than adequate with what we're doing. And again, it's those spikes. If we can soften those spikes in utility by microgrids, battery storage, either locally or regionally, all those things are going to help. You know, looking at, you know, when you're using stuff, your timing, your load profiles, your peaks, your valleys, you know, PG&E's energy peak is twice a day. It's somewhere between 7 and 11 a.m. when everybody's getting up, going, hair dryers going, hot water heaters going, everything else. And then again, we're on 5 to 9 p.m. And again, that's electric ranges running, air conditioners are turning on when people get home. Some people are plugging their EVs. All those things, again, are high spikes in the utility. And ways of softening that is having in-house storage, you know, good high quality battery systems that are going to last 15 plus years. You know, a lot of different things can help to reduce those spikes that the utility has to manage. They can't just go, well, geez, we don't have enough, we're going to shut you off for the day. It's not something that they really want to do. They want to, you know, they don't get paid by us if the power's turned off. We need to have the power turned on. They need to be supplying it for us, but we need to be reasonable. And the ways of doing that are, you know, if you want to incorporate the smart panels, you want to incorporate timers, there's a lot of different things you can do. And, you know, then, you know, another big part is getting into, you know, new construction and remodeling. And I think all of us have seen it. You know, they've got some, you know, beautiful house being put up in the neighborhood. And then the guy goes in to put the solar panels on the top and they're mismatched and, you know, gapped and, you know, spaces and everything else. And that's because when the architect designed the house and the plumber worked on the house and the roofer did the roof on the house, nobody gave really much thought to the poor solar guy coming in afterward that has to put the panels up there that have to go around all this stuff that was put on the roof. So take that into consideration when you're, you know, working with an architect or you're working with a contractor to have those very important south-facing, west-facing areas made clear and available to be putting something up there so we can soften the blow in the utility. So we cannot necessarily need to have a big, main service panel, because we're not needing that much demand. I quite honestly, and I've told this to Ben, I've told this to a lot of people, you can't really have too much solar in your house. Once you go to zero, sure, you're not getting anything from the utility, but that's not the point. The point is you're producing as much as you can when you need it, and maybe a little bit extra. Design that into the construction of the house. A lot of jurisdictions are requiring something to be, some small amount to be solar powered, but that's, in most cases, that's a step in the right direction, but a very small step. Bigger is better when you can go solar. Battery storage, the same thing. A lot of customers I speak with, they need resiliency. And if the utility does go down because there's major spikes and something breaks, they need to have battery storage. They need to have backup to the battery storage, which could be, in a lot of cases, a generator. So we have multiple steps of insurance to protect us against those problems. And they all can be incorporated in, or most cases, all of them. Some cases we can't put generators in certain areas. I do have some of them that are in San Francisco that are on literally the rooftops. So things can go in different places. Health reasons require certain things, but this is all something that we need to look at big picture and understand that, solar storage, electrification, all of this is not just, the guys that are, the crazy people way off, they're trying to, be environmental. This is mainstream, and this really has to be incorporated as mainstream. We can avoid a lot of utility usage issues when we can do more local and, smart panels, microgrids, battery storage, self-consumption versus utility consumption. All of these things all play into it. And, one size by itself helps, more things help a lot more. And it makes a really big difference.
Hey,
So,
can I ask you to make some closing statements, and then maybe I'll open the floor for some discussion and questions and back and forth.
Well, in closing, it's when you've got architects, contractors, builders, remodelers, really take into consideration that south and west facing roof. Building integrated PV is not really, I think, the end all. I think more traditional solar panels are going to be better in the long term than anything else. Battery storage, there's a lot of different chemistries out there. Do the research. The cheaper, the best deal, the rebates, the incentives from different manufacturers may not be the end all. Really want to look at something that is going to be stable and do what you want to do, not just for today or tomorrow, but 5 years, 15 years down the road. And I can go on for hours, but I understand time is limited. So let's, I guess.
Yeah, I think we have plenty of questions. And I also just wanted to insert some of my own remarks. So this topic is just so near and dear to my heart as a mechanical engineer. And, Conrad had mentioned the build tight, ventilate right adage, or whatever you call it. And so I guess to kind of summarize everything that's been said here, there's tons of resources for figuring this out, but it is going to take a village to really, everyone needs to play their part to get all these pieces to fit together and get this whole thing right. So now, like Jerry said, we're looking a lot more at the stocks and flows of electricity, as opposed to just always expecting that we can access it on demand, which is the paradigm of fossil fuels. So in a way, this electrification move is kind of like the Trojan horse to the building industry, where now all of a sudden we really need to think of storing the energy and producing it on site, and also the efficiency of the home to begin with. So if I may shamelessly plug my presentation, which is on our MBA YouTube, which was a few months ago, talked all about the building enclosure and why it's so important to make it an efficient building enclosure in the first place. So all right, so we're going to get into some questions, and let me just start from the top here, and then maybe I'll just have Conrad, you can say a couple words if you have them, and then Jerry, and then we'll keep kind of bouncing back and forth. But both of you can come off mute if you like. First question is, with the price per kilowatt hour continuing to rise and the changes to net metering, how do you see the homeowners that are all electric able to cover shifting natural gas bill to all electric home? So how do we how do we expect the cost to rise or fall, or how do the leaders taking on electrification to cover these costs?
Conrad, you want to start, or you want me to take it?
Why don't you go ahead and jump in, Jerry, and I can cover afterwards. I mean, I do think that you might have some ideas on that. So why don't you go ahead?
Well, in short, it was a big blow to the solar industry when PG&E did make the changes, but it is something that we have to work with now. And quite honestly, it's in some ways it's going to it can help the homeowner, because what we can do now is, again, like I had mentioned earlier, is when you're using the appliances. You know, farmers did a lot of watering at night. Now they literally, if they're putting new solar on with the new net metering agreement, they may be doing the watering during the day. Self-consumption is really what we need to get a better understanding of with each homeowner when we're working with somebody, because self-consumption is you're producing and consuming it in-house. It's not leaving the utility. You're not selling it to PG&E for what you're not able to get from them, again, but you're not having to buy anything from them either. And having them there when you need it for spikes or cloudy weather, whatever it might be, we can really work with this and make it to everybody's advantage, because it's probably not going to go back to the way it was, and it is what we have to work with. So let's figure out how to really accommodate self-demand as much as possible, and energy storage is a part of that.
And just to dovetail on that, I was going to say energy storage as well. I think that is a really critical thing that the state is actually trying to also promote. I know there's some incentives for new construction, particularly, that are focused on making sure that you have solar and battery storage. I know that for retrofitting, that's an extra cost that you'll have to consider. But I do think that battery storage can help to buffer, time of use, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. And just to reiterate, there are self-generation incentives, or excuse me, not self-generation. The storage incentives for batteries are pretty abundant these days.
And there are also rates for all electric homes. They do have, it's called the E-elect rate. And so I can also give you a link to PG&E's page on what the opportunity is to change your rate if you're having all electric equipment.
Interesting.
I don't know, Mark, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, Mark, get in on it.
I actually wanted to respond to another question, so let's wrap this one up. I did want to a common question about electrification has to do with outages, and so when you get to that question, I wanted to comment.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, I'm just going to go in order of how these got typed in. I work to transition homeowners to renewable through storage and solar. I've quoted several clients who are installing heat pumps and heat pump, water heater, HVAC. Is there an efficient way to calculate the higher level of kilowatt hour usage from these home electrification upgrades? So are there easy calculators available for designers that you know of? Or is that kind of up to the electrician to know how to calculate?
I think it's focused on the electrician, but I do think that there are calculators coming online that are accessible to builders and contractors to do that. But I would definitely defer to the contractor and the electrician who are really trying to gauge the need for load for the home for the project.
Professional design, I guess, just a professional consulting decision or whatever. Great. Okay. What is the minimum solar requirement for an accessory dwelling unit? Do either of you guys?
I wanted to take that one. I did just look as we were kind of prepping, I saw that question and I did look on the fact sheet that I was promoting. And on page 3, you will see a compliance requirements chart. So I would highly recommend looking at that. Photovoltaics, it says, pretty much across the board is NA, so not applicable. But in new construction for the prescriptive approach of an ADU, you can get performance credits. So you can consider that a possibility of performance credits to then, trade off on other parts of the code requirements for the accessory dwelling unit. That's the same with battery storage. There are no requirements, but there are credits available for new construction, not for additions or alterations. But again, I think tapping into those fact sheets is really helpful in specific questions like that.
Yeah.
And one thing to go on that, certain jurisdictions have different requirements than others. Some do not have any requirements, and some of them are just, it's required for them to do. So one size does not fit all, depending where you're building.
Can you give us a couple examples of who require it?
Well, like town of Windsor up in Sonoma County, all new construction is required to have, I think it's like 2.4 K of minimum of PV for the roof, which isn't a whole lot. Again, bigger is better and everything else. So I'd figure how much you can fit on that south facing roof and max it out, especially if you can do it during new construction. It's all done. It's all warranted by one. It's the best deal you can ever get. But some areas it has to do with square footage. Some it has to do with your energy load calculation. It does depend, but and literally you could be on one side of the street being county and the other side of the street being a city and have different requirements.
Mm-hmm. Helpful to have a knowledgeable consultant like Jerry. Okay, so we are at the question about grid going down, grid backup. Mark, did you want to have some words about that?
Sure, I'll just make a few comments, and I'm always available through the Marin Builders Association with you, Ashley, with Rick and Christine. But a couple comments about the grid going down. Probably your most common power outage is going to be what we call an unplanned outage. That could be a car into a pole, birds into our wires, mylar balloons, anyway, any number of things can create an unplanned outage. Along the lines of unplanned outages during the summer high fire season, and one of the things that I think Jerry may have mentioned, we've seen a number of outages in West Sonoma County, in Up Valley, Napa County, in West, more high fire threat areas of Marin. This time of year, we have something called the enhanced power safety settings that turns the power off within 1/10 of a second. That's fire prevention technology. The idea is to reduce ignition, but it creates power outages. And it currently is taking us up to 4 hours, sometimes longer, to restore the power, because we need to patrol those lines to restore the power, to make sure that there's nothing on them that could ignite once we restore the power. And I just mentioned this because the outages are going to become less frequent, and the duration to restore the power in the future will become much shorter. So for right now, I understand the concerns about electrification. Somebody's asking a question, well, what are we going to do for hot water or things that they typically would receive from gas? It's a legitimate concern today, but PG&E continues to upgrade the restoration process, and the number of outages in the future will be fewer. The duration that they will be out will be shorter as we continue to upgrade the system. And they're putting in things today that help alert us to where those problems areas are. We have SCADA equipment for remote control, a lot of other things. My hope is that in the future, there'll be a lot less and a lot shorter. Will we ever have a time where we can 100%, 365 days a year have continuous uninterrupted power? No, that will never be the case. But some folks in Napa were without gas for a number of weeks, or in some cases months, after the Napa earthquake. So even with gas, there are situations and times where earthquakes and such, landslides or whatnot, may cause disruptions in gas service as well. Just a couple comments there. Public safety power shutoffs are very rare in Marin. Fairly unlikely. Again, it's for fire safety only. And then a quick comment on microgrids. I'm not completely sure I see microgrids as a good solution for a couple of reasons. I've seen the diesel microgrids, and I know the Bay Area Air Quality Management District and other folks have concerns about the use of diesel, and even clean biodiesel. That poses challenges and problems with diesel. We're taking a look at maybe one of the first or very few in the nation hydrogen-based microgrids that may, stress the word may, be constructed in Calistoga next year. Very, well, let me put it this way, not cheap, not cheap, and only used really minimally for the cost of that. Yes, it's hydrogen, so the exhaust is water, but that hydrogen currently has to be trucked in via tanker. So now you've got tanker trucks traveling back and forth, with liquid hydrogen. That some folks may say that's not helpful to the climate either. So there's just a lot of trade-offs and such. So for a long time, I was hopeful that microgrids would be the solution. Even solar and battery takes a tremendous amount of space, land, to generate the types of megawatts that might support a community. So I think, individual things to do at home for energy efficiency, battery storage, bidirectional charging for vehicles, and that sort of thing may be where we're heading.
So Mark, one question or one part on what you're talking about with the unplanned outages and even the planned outages, you're also able to localize them a lot more than you did even 2 or 3 years ago with all the added technology that you guys have. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's true. Thanks for saying that, Jerry. It is true. At the end of the day, and I think we have one coming out soon. I keep asking about it. It was supposed to be ready in July. We're a little bit behind, perhaps like the California budget, but we have a quarterly outage update report by county that should show, for the communities, how often there's an outage, how many outages there are in an area, how long the duration of those outages are, and some of the causes. And I just say that because it's a very legitimate question. I ask it often, myself, like, okay, if the power goes out in my home, how am I going to do things that I normally do throughout my day, if I don't have electricity? And I tend to think that, like I said, the bidirectional vehicles, the wall batteries, and such, the last thing I'll say, and I can't do it right now on this call, but we'll get it to Rick and to Ashley and Christine. People who lived in these areas that have enhanced power safety settings, where they are more likely to see the power go off because for fire mitigation, or the very slim chances in Marin County, especially for a public safety power shutoff. A lot of people in this area can qualify for significant incentives and rebates to get batteries that may at least power the refrigerator, or a wall battery for a Tesla, especially for medical baseline folks or access and functional needs people. So I do want to say that there are, there's a trade-off. Living in a high fire threat area is not ideal. Having an enhanced power safety settings poses challenges, but there is a benefit because of the state and PG&E creating these incentive plans, that cover the cost of permitting, that cover the costs, most, if not all the costs of the batteries and other storage opportunities. And Rick, folks at Marin Builders Association, I can get you those links. I think that's something where, electricians or contractors or other folks can really help support their communities by talking with people about those incentives to install those and get those put in homes where they really need to have the electricity. It can't fail for 24 hours if somebody's dependent on battery operated oxygen tanks or other medical needs.
Great. So I have a related question, and I think maybe summarizes a few of the questions in the chat here. And that is, so say I'm a homeowner and I have a budget for solar and batteries. What would each of you recommend as a percentage of that budget to go towards solar versus going towards on-site storage?
I'll start with that. Quite honestly, it depends. It depends on what the daily usage is of the property. It depends on what the available sun exposure is. You can get by with fewer panels if you've got a very good sunny location compared to not, and you only can generate for them for 3 hours during the day. You're going to need more panels. It'll be more expensive to get the same amount of daily power. Storage, it depends. If you have a lot of potential demand and usage in the event of an outage or prolonged outages, then you need to have a larger storage system. Lithium iron phosphate, a very stable battery technology. It's not the Model T brand. It is something different, but it is extremely reliable, extremely fire safe, and not as environmentally nasty as some of the other technologies. So one size does not fit all. And it is something that really needs to be considered on that application. What is it we're trying to do? In some cases, people realize that, hey, I can get by with less backup in the event of an outage if I have enough solar to keep it going during the day. Maybe not. Maybe we don't power the entire house. Maybe we power the refrigeration, the furnace, the ceiling fans, some lighting circuits. We don't have to power the entire house. So those things all have to be taken into consideration to get a better and clearer understanding of what it is the customer is looking for and really needs. Don't want to throw that money at something you're not going to need. And one thing to back up a little bit on Mark, when we're talking about the microgrids I have designed and installed in part, started out with a solar array, battery storage, inverters, infrastructure, switchgear, and it literally had a standby generator that was collecting dust because it never had to run. So the generators are not necessarily the only source of backup on the microgrids. And Hawaii did quite a few of them, and they all used batteries, and none of them used generators. So, but that's, again, it does depend. So, okay.
And I would, Conrad, I just jump in real quick. I would defer to, Jerry, the solar experts, et cetera. But I would say, as far as a balance between generation and storage, look at the code, look at where the new construction is going. There's a reason cost effective, you need to be cost effective when you design and implement the building code. That's through the Warren Act. So you have to do that. And so in doing that, you're not putting on huge solar arrays as a requirement for new construction. You're putting on what meets the consumption need of the home. So think in those terms as well. From my perspective, I would say, you know, there is value in trying to not look at it as you're getting off the grid, and that's the goal here. It's how do you decrease the expensive peak load amount of electricity that you're using, and that would be through an ample amount of solar with some storage.
Great. Okay, so I just wanted to note that we're at the top of the hour. Some people might be hopping off here, and if you are, thank you so much for coming. Again, we're going to publish this recording on the Marin Builders Association YouTube page, so you can look for it there.